All right, good afternoon. You are now in session 6 of the day, the session before closing, but it should be the most fun. We got our good friends from Link here. We have Kate Schuster and Kim Weber. They're going to be presenting on traits of a powerful leader, how to extract the best out of their team. Your team, sorry, not their team. Probably both. Hey, there you go. In the chat, you have, I just added this, and I know I have more friends coming in. It is the attendance survey and the name of the session. Please, 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 if you're trying to get that magical certificate of professional learning or college credit, you do need to complete the attendance survey. And with that, I will pass it back off to Kate and Kim.
Right. Okay, hello everybody. We'll just get started because this is a fast session. I feel like I'm already talking fast. And do some quick intros. Just my name is Kim Weber, and I work at Link. And prior to working as a blended learning coach, and now a partnership project manager, I was a teacher for 20 years, and just really enjoy these opportunities to get with people working in the schools and, right there and working with the kids. So it's nice to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Schuster. I also work at the Learning Innovation Catalyst. Prior to coming to join Link, I was a teacher and administrator in New York City Public Schools. And now I'm here at Link. And so we're really excited to be here on your big Nevada Learning Day and to end your day with our presentation. So, Kim, do you want to ready to kick off?
Yeah, go ahead and pop into into the next slide there. We'll talk about our journey today. We really wanted to have this be an introspective session, and we'll be looking at our leadership traits and if they're either a multiplying type trait or diminishing type trait. And so it is going to be one of those places today, those experiences today, we kind of lean into some introspection. We are using a lot of the teaching from Liz Wiseman's book, Multipliers. And it's really about learning your leadership style and how you can create the culture you want. But also there's instances where you might even be squashing the culture that you want. So we really want to look at how to identify some of these traits and maximize the positive ones. All right, and go to the next. Kate's driving for me here, so. Thanks, Kate. So this is the book that we'll be referring to, throughout the session. And we actually used this in our organization, and we had a really good time with it because, like I said, it peels off the layers a little bit of who we are as leaders. And we're going to share some of the strategies we use that you also might be able to use in your school and your leadership roles. And just so we wanted to share with you the format that we use in most of our Link sessions is we start out in a reflect stage. So we'll be doing some talking and some quick reflections about who we are and what we currently do. And then from there, you'll feel a shift in the session where we go into more of a tinker activity, we call it. You'll be doing more in that section. It'll feel more action oriented. And then finally, the grow section towards the end is where we look at what did we learn and what are our next steps. So I just wanted you to be familiar with that structure that you'll be experiencing today with us. So let's go ahead and start with some reflection. And we have this great quote, and we'll give you a second to just read it. And if you wouldn't mind, take a moment, even if, you can come off mute. We love it when people come off mute. In reflecting on leadership, what does this mean to you? This idea of instead teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. You can also drop it in the chat if you have some thoughts about that as something with your leadership style. Purpose and passion versus shallow directives. Yeah, compliance. I mean, I was a teacher for 20 years and I was a rule follower. And it was really empowering when I worked with a school leader that got me out of that mode, saw my strength.
I think of a direction giver as opposed to questioner, right? Like,
Nice.
yeah, because that's what I'm struggling with in my leadership skills right now.
Yeah, but that's such a great, just discerning between telling versus asking and having more of that curious type leadership style. We often put so much pressure on ourselves too to have the answers and the solutions. So we'll get into that today too.
Really good thoughts here. Thanks for sharing, folks.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so one of the things that we naturally start out with this idea of native genius, and this is a term that I've seen used in different places, and definitely it's covered in the book that we read. I want you to take a minute here, and when we have a longer session, we usually actually give leaders time to sort of do a writing activity. So if you are taking notes right now too, you could just like give yourself remember to do this. Take a minute and think of first, what is your native genius? And that is that space where you're doing something that comes naturally. I love this quote at the bottom there: inspired thought knows no bounds. It's when, you're working and time sort of just dissolves away, and, it's sort of like what you were born to do. It might be something like, you're in that flow when you're helping people resolve conflict, which we know comes up, in schools and everywhere. And we have a person we work with at our company that she has such a natural ability to scaffold. She knows right when to push someone into that discomfort zone where you're still able to grow and learn. And she's really great at knowing when to pull back too. So that's sort of, when I think of native genius, it's what's innate in us. So if you have time later, spend a little time and reflect about yourself. This is, these are our strengths. This is what comes naturally. But then the other thing we really like to give people time to do is maybe pick 2 or 3 staff members that maybe perplex you a little bit, or that there's just something that it's like, I feel like this person could do more. They're just out of balance or something. And then take some time and think about you might even need to observe closely. Like, where is it what is their native genius? And then the next step is to sort of think about what are some things I could do differently that put them in the position where their native genius they're able to use it more, and you can maximize that person's native genius. So sometimes it's just a little tweak in a role or responsibility that they have. And so, like I said, we usually do give a good amount of time to think about native genius. Since we have a pretty quick session, we wanted to just introduce this idea. Does anybody have any thoughts or, anything that came to mind as you were thinking about people's native genius on your staff?
To me, it's also a really great way of educators thinking about even their students, right? Like, especially a student who, like you said, Kim, perplexes you. You're like, this is not like a personality that I have encountered before. I'm struggling to connect with this child. Thinking about them in this space of like, well, what is their native genius? How can I tap into that? And I think it's definitely the same with adult development.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Kate. It reminded me of a principal that we worked with that sort of scheduled in 15-minute check-ins with each teacher, and really made a point in those check-ins to call out their native genius. And it's a way for someone to feel very connected to you and seen. Like, we all want to be seen, and sometimes people don't even realize that's their native genius. We sometimes don't see ourselves. So it's nice when someone takes the time to really observe and say, hey, I noticed this about you. How do you feel about this? Would you like to do more of this kind of work? And I think
and yes, Brian's right in the chat. Can it be a student with you? Yeah. Because again, everyone has a native genius, and the author, sort of talks about that. And one of their jobs, right, as a leader in your classroom, as an educator, or a leader in your school community or your district, is to tap into that and try to figure that out, to help bring out what is that person's native genius and build upon it.
Yeah. And it can be a really fun activity, for students in this, time of a lot of social emotional learning and things like that, to do an activity like that where they reflect on themselves too and their native genius. That can all be good data for teachers to have. All right. So we're gonna shift a little bit in this place of reflection, and we're gonna introduce another way of being, which can be termed an accidental diminisher. And I don't know, I already go like, who wants to be that, right? But it's easy when we're leaders to really focus on strengths and native genius, and have this other thing, this accidental diminisher trait happening, and not even be aware sometimes. So we want to get into analyzing this concept a little bit with you. And I wanted to share one of the things that we did is we had a little fun with this. Like I mentioned, it's really common to start and focus on things that are multipliers. And then the flip side, they're very related, is, this idea of being an accidental diminisher. We do have to give ourselves a little bit of grace when we're doing this work. I just want to say it, because this is where we're looking and reflecting on ourselves as well. So what we did in our organization is we made confessional style after we did the work that you're going to do here in a minute, when we identified our diminishing traits, and we wanted to share with our staff our findings and our aha moments about ourselves. So we had a good time. So I wanted to just share this one with you real quick that I made and shared with my team.
Okay, so we're going to just a minute, but you're going to hear Kim's confessional about what is her accidental diminisher trait as a leader.
Hi, my name is Kim Weber, and I am an accidental diminisher. I was new to being a leader or manager, and I quickly found myself falling into the diminishing trait of being a protector. I was, very consumed with being effective in my role and managing my team's capacity. So I did a lot of really focusing in on getting lots of details before I would turn assignments and tasks over to them. And what ended up happening was I limited their ability or their potential to grow and have agency over the work that they were doing. So what I did was I reached out to my team and identified my diminisher trait and asked them to really focus in on when it felt like my protecting became diminishing, and really call me out on it. And I'm happy to report that it's working, and I'm on the road to being less of a diminishing protector.
All right. So when we shift into discovering our own accidental diminisher traits, this was just a share that we had that was really fun for our team to learn about each other and the things that we wanted to work on. And it really was about accountability as a leader too. Like when I discovered this diminishing trait, and it was true. I could see it once I saw that I was working with people and really trying to do too much in advance, and they just didn't have the agency that they could have. It was nice when people felt comfortable, back channeling me sometimes, or messaging me with like, hey Kim, you're kind of doing that thing again.
This is what Sandra was saying before, that sometimes you're like, here are all the details because I just want you to like have it all figured out, right, Sandra? And that actually, right, and this is the point of the author of Wiseman, is that often can suppress people and not allow them to have agency, empowerment, to support you, and they might have like a way better way of figuring out this thing. But when you sort of outline it all up front for them, it again becomes a diminishing leadership trait that we have.
Right.
And I see Sandra shaking her head in agreement. You see that. Yeah.
Right. And it really is, it's a fine line, because these things are not bad inherently. It's sort of when we take them to the extreme. And so that's why this was so enlightening when I realized, like, oh, I thought this was a good thing. And then to see, we're going to provide some strategies too for you, that just little things you can try too. So we're going to shift now to the tinker part of the session. So it will feel a little different. You'll be doing a little bit of work here. So as I mentioned in my confession, I have a tendency towards being a protector. And then, so what I did is, I used the quiz that we're going to share with you next. I did have to swallow my pride a little bit and get through the quiz. And I went through where it'll give you a report of your most diminishing traits. So I focused on those. And then dug into some of the techniques, that suggestions that we'll go ahead and give you today. They call workarounds, and just really wanted to share with you. This was a monumental turning point in my career as a leader. It's really helping me become an effective leader and overcome some of my potentially diminishing habits. And it's been really helpful. So we're excited to share this with you.
Okay, so we're actually going to give you some time to take the quiz. So you're going to stay with us, but I'm going to drop the quiz into the chat. And what I would like you to do, it's actually pretty short, and I want you to think, if you are a woman of a certain age, you might remember like Teen Vogue or Cosmo, where you have to take your quizzes and you have to think of like the first thing that comes up for you. So try not to overthink it when you go through the questions. And so take the quiz, review your explanation. And again, your explanation is going to look something like this. But we're going to give you 7 minutes to complete this. So just take some time and do your quiz.
You can turn, this is always when I turn my cameras off too. It's okay though.
Feel free to turn your camera off. one more minute and then we'll come back together. Okay. I'm gonna move us to sharing out. So this is a time to be vulnerable. This is our poll time. Mary was very nice and she created a poll for us. So you're actually going to see each of the accidental diminisher scenarios that you could be in. And we want you to select which one was the one that came up for you. Thank you, Mary. So take a moment. Okay. We have one person who responded, and it's anonymous.
Yes, it doesn't show. And the results should have popped up. I'm hoping everybody got them, popped right up, or they were delivered to the email that you entered. It's pretty instantaneous.
Okay, the responses are coming in. Okay.
Yes. Good question, Amanda. It took me a little while to read through it. It levels you on all of them. And so there's one that I can't remember the term they use, but it's like the most.
Ooh, protector. Okay. Yep.
I think that's so common in our education field.
So the option that I'm looking for, I don't see. So maybe I'm not looking
Oh.
for the answers the way that they respond. Could you tell me where people are finding that specific idea?
Those terms. Were you able to, when you completed the 10 questions, did it pop up the results?
Yes, but none of those results are that
Oh.
answer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Let me look back at mine.
Check your email.
Oh,
I did, and the same response came up that came in as
Yeah.
the result, but none of those are the answers,
It's
which
not
is
one of
why I'm
those?
confused.
what do you have?
It just says likely an accidental diminisher.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
It'll be in your detailed report
It is,
and
maybe,
it'll say explanation with the person's head or maybe a picture.
Yeah, like this.
Appreciative. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Of course.
Okay, I'm going to end poll so you can see the results, but it's interesting. So we have some idea guy, always on, rapid responder, protector, and perfectionist. Those are the ones that are coming up.
Yep.
For folks. So interesting. And it's interesting thinking about in the education space too.
what our tendencies are.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for completing that. We're not done with our tinker time. So now that you've shared out what you got as your accidental diminisher, we're going to do a little more exploring. So I'm going to link a document that has each accidental diminisher. So you'll see it looks like this on the side. It has the positive intention, right? Like Kim said, every accidental diminisher has a positive intention and often can come out that way and be perceived by us that way. Then you're going to see it there. What does that look like in schools? when I created this document, it was like a very, like, I was thinking about every leader I had myself, right? What is this? What is the outcome in school? What does that usually look like? And then you're going to look at the workaround, because that's our responsibility as the accidental diminisher, is to try to develop ways to work around that, so we're not caught in this accidental diminisher space with all of our teachers and other staff members that we lead. So when you're looking at this document, and again, you're going to have a few minutes, I really want you to think about, how has this accidental diminisher trait shown up for you? And do the workarounds work for you? Like, is this actually something that you could try to implement? Let me show you the document before I share it. So again, it looks just like this, where you have each accidental diminisher trait. It has the positive intention, the outcome in schools, and the workaround. If you have time, and I'm going to link it in the chat, you also can take a look at this other resource that the Wiseman group has, where it has each of the accidental diminisher qualities and some additional context and like, how does this actually show up for folks who have that dominant accidental diminisher quality. So again, we're going to have a few more minutes now. So this is still more tinkering. So here is the document with the accidental diminisher qualities and the workarounds. And it's a bit.ly. Let me see if it will better if it's like this. Okay. And then if you want, there's some additional, you can explore this additional document, which has even more context around the consequence of each accidental diminisher. So we're going to take 5 minutes to let you explore our accidental diminisher document here, just to give you a little more understanding and context for yourself. So I'm going to do 5 more minutes. Feel free to turn off your camera. I will check in with you sooner if we don't need that much time. Okay. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I want to just share one. Here's one that I know comes up for a lot of folks, is the rescuer, right? And this is really just the idea is to protect your staff. But when you, like it says, the outcome in schools, right, is like when you have this accidental diminisher trait, you really just diminish people's ability to help problem solve. And they actually have this like learned helplessness situation that happens. And it doesn't mean you don't listen to them and you don't coach through solving an issue, but really supporting them rather than like, this is how you should fix it. And this is this is how to do this thing. Really talking to them about in that space of curiosity, right? Like what could be the solution here? Here are some things that others have done. Could any of those things work for you? Really having that coaching conversation. And again, I'm sure you looked at other ones, but it's really, I always think, some of these are interesting and how they come up in the coaching context. So I really want to have some people share out. Like we wrote before, and how we wanted you to think through during that second Tinker time. How has your trait shown up for you? Kim shared it, how it showed up for her. And do the workarounds that we described here work for you? I would love for people to come off of mute or to at least put into the chat and hear what is coming up for you.
I'll go ahead and share. My situation is a very unique situation. I am actually a central office administrator, but I cover every single school in the entire district for my position, and I am the only one in my department. So
Common.
Yeah, I mean, like there's 380 schools plus in our district, and I'm the only person in my department for every single school.
Wow.
So the position of always on is what I wound up identifying with. And I love that, the create the energy for every single person in every single school in the entire school district is my job.
Yeah.
So I want there to be creative thinkers. I want there to be opportunities for them to be able to like give me those energies, but I really need to ignite in order for them to know that there's actually an energy to be had. So it was interesting to see like, where it was in terms of like where your positive was and then where your, other pieces come into play. And I'm like, yeah, I would be thrilled, but I am I am the department.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Fran. I think a lot of it, and we're going to talk about this in like our your next steps, is like sharing this with people, right? And saying like, I realize that is like, this is the space that I'm occupying. This is perhaps why, but here's why that isn't always the best thing for our collective, like whatever it is that we're working on together.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing, Fran.
Yeah. And Fran, it's got to take a toll on you too, right?
Yeah.
To get to that space of when you're an always on, I know that feeling of like, you're the cheerleader, you've got to bring 100% of the energy, every time. And that does take a toll on you too. So, being aware of this and figuring out spaces where you can turn some of that over and have someone else be on for a little bit.
Between 330,000 plus students and like, 20,000 other employees of the district, by all means, 400,000 people, no problem.
Yeah.
Use your brains, friends, and share what you got.
Yeah,
exactly. And Sarah dropped something in the
very
chat.
vulnerable,
too,
Sarah.
Yeah, like, leaving space. We talk a lot about airtime. Even we put so much pressure on ourselves to fill up the space, and that's
one trick that I really love from so we're a company of facilitators, and so we also get training on facilitation, and one of our one of our coaches, he's like a very well-known like life coach and career coach for folks. And his little trick is to wait 12 seconds. So if you ask a question, wait at least 12 seconds to allow people to actually answer or come up with a thought or a comment. It feels much longer than perhaps it is, but it actually like gives people some processing time and the space to actually say something. And Kim yes, and Kim said that Kim said this before, that often as leaders we're tasked, we think that our job always is to be the problem solver and to figure everything out all the time, and that again that takes up a lot of space. And also, you're only one person. How could you possibly have all of the best ideas always?
Mhm.
Right? You need to really give some real space to people to help figure things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's
Yeah.
even nice to enforce a wait time, right? Before anybody says, because then you've got the rapid responders out there in the world too. So it's really, it's fun to even just play with silence, like someone said, and get comfortable with that sometimes.
And you're right. All of these things are actually really good. They're really transferable to teachers working with students, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about native genius, thinking about exponential diminisher, things, these are applicable to anyone who you are in relationship with. Okay, now we're getting to the end of our session, the end of your Nevada day. So we're going to do some grow. You all have been so great about coming off of mute, sharing in the chat. This is some extra chance to do that. We reflect in the beginning, we had some tinker time, and now we're going to close out with some additional reflection and about next steps for you. And some of you have already been thinking about this. Okay, so again, people have already been putting some of these adjustments in here, which I love. I would love for other folks to share out in addition. So based on your accidental diminisher work, what are some immediate adjustments that you can make to your mindset, to your practice, to your style, knowing this new piece about yourself?
Yep.
And
this is really
in the chat.
okay.
Sorry, Sandra. Go for it.
The strategist was one of my, I think I hit every single one of these, I think, my results. Like, but the strategist one is standing out to me because this is a new role for me as a facilitator this year. And we work with the Leadership Academy out of New York. So we're going through coaching, and I'm part of that admin team. And I'm very much a how person. Like, I'm going to give you the strategy and just do it. Like, it'll work. My strategies will work. So like the workaround for that is don't complete the puzzle. And so I feel like I need to stop completing the puzzle for people in my curriculum development, because like, I'm not allowing them to grow with what they need to be doing. And I need to let the teams figure out the how. I'll give them the why and the what, but that's I need to stop completing the puzzle.
I love that, Sandra. And again, that's something like what you just said. I would really encourage you to say to your team, and say it often in your coaching and your developing of the curriculum. Like, we talked, tell me the why, the why. Okay. Now our job, right, is to figure out the how, and I'm going to support you in that, but I want you all to collectively figure out the how. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Right. There's so much collective wisdom in this room right now with all of us. So, any strategies, the next slide that Kate put up is, what are some structures you can put in place to help keep you accountable? And this is where you all, have probably some really concrete examples of things you've tried or structures you've already put in place to develop, distributed leadership models or get out of the way of some of these diminishing things. So go ahead and share strategies you've already tried.
Mm-hmm. And we have some examples, like, again, there's some really concrete like structures that you can put into place. I would definitely tell people, I would name it for folks so they know. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you are a rapid responder, if that's what's coming up for you, maybe you institute, and again, you'll say this to your teacher teams or your staff team, that you're going to have a 24-hour rule before responding to emails if you want others to step up, right? Definitely communicate that to folks. And when people do respond, encourage them and say, like, you know, and shout that out, that like they came up to the plate. But there are some real things that you can do. I love them. We put into, I see some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what else, Kate? I remember, and I hadn't read this one. The idea came up, you know, to do a book study.
Mhm.
They adapted this book for schools.
Yeah.
Too. So there's another one out there since we did this
Mhm.
specifically targeted at schools.
So here are some next steps, and some people are already naming this, Sarah.
Yeah.
So, right, share the quiz with others. That's a really simple
Do this
thing
with
that
your
you can
team.
do. Consider a book club. Also, someone else talked about this, and people are already putting some things in the chat. I don't know, you know, we're all reading it, right? So here's some things, some questions for the book club, right? How does this show up at your school and organization? You might really want to think about that. How can this inform our work with other leaders?
Mhm.
Ask for accountability. So name it for your team. Talk about what workarounds you're instituting for yourself, and ask for that accountability. And then, you know, work in the workarounds, right? Making sure that you're doing that. Here's some, I'm going to put this into the chat. This is a multiplier development plan. Her website is really rich with resources.
And we'll share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kate.
Share out. But again, some really great things. I just want to, so people are talking about that they're a rapid responder, and letting people struggle and find answers for themselves is really hard. That's me.
I know.
Trying me because I got an always on trait and taking up too much airtime. Yep.
Mustafa mentioned, you know, getting some honest feedback and really opening that up to your staff. And that's exactly it. Like if you name your diminishing trait and then really open up a way for people to communicate with you, it just builds trust too. It builds so much relationship when we show I know that word is out there so much, you know, that we're vulnerable, but it's more than that. It's like that we're open to hearing people's feedback about us in leadership roles.
Yeah. Okay, so we're nearing the end of our time together, but we're going to leave you with some good thoughts. Yeah. Kim, take it away.
Okay. So, you know, this first quote, I'll let you read it here, just gets at the heart of what we're, you know, talking about. Sometimes we see our positive intentions, but our staff might actually be experiencing it differently. And that's sort of the essence of this book. And then this last quote: becoming a multiplier often starts with becoming less of a diminisher. This usually means doing less talking, less responding, less convincing, and less rescuing of others who need to struggle and learn for themselves. By doing less, we can become more of a multiplier. And that's almost a gift, right? It's something to play around with, you know, when you go back to work. And it may just be choosing one thing that you step back from a little, you know, and inviting and enlisting others based on their native genius, maybe to take more ownership of some of these things.
So we have a bunch of resources for you and other stuff that we want to just tell you about. And I'm going to share a document with you in a second. Okay, thanks, Kim. Sure. So in our resource document, which we have right here, there's lots of stuff in here, additional things. You can use this, you know, for your book club and all of that. But some things I want to shout out. So this is one session that we do, that Link does as part of our Leadership Academy. And we have a link here if that is something that you are interested in exploring and learning more about. Kim leads Kim is one of the co-facilitators of the Leadership Academy. And again, this is just one piece, but there's a lot more content. Kim, I don't know if you want to
Yeah,
shout
it's
out
just a fun
for?
4-day, 4 different days where we focus on components of developing ourselves a little deeper in ultimately trying to build what we call a culture of innovation in our schools. So it's really designed for, again, kind of like this for you. I think leaders so often think of teachers, like how can I support my teachers? I want to workshop on how to support my teachers versus how do I build myself as a leader? So we really want to do that over that 4-day time with you. If you're
So
interested.
again, that link is here. There's more stuff on the resource document. Again, this is the resource document. And the last thing on here is that I know you might be getting credit, Mary. You have your own a Nevada continuing education PD form. We also are certified link as Nevada professional development providers. So I'm going to provide that link down here in the chat in case you would like to get credit from us. Yeah, these are all of our little resources. Again, this is all stuff that you can take and you can use. What questions are coming up for you?
So while people think, and definitely put them in the chat while I'm talking, so apologies for that. Just a couple of reminders, please fill out the attendance tracker. We also have a session tracker here in the chat I put in. Please provide feedback. I know Kate and Kim love feedback. We do too at NDE.
Yeah.
And also we have our closing session at 3:45. I think there's still some raffle prizes available, especially got to be there at the end of the day though. Just letting you know on those things. That being said, are there any questions for our friends at Link?
This is also, while you're thinking of questions, this is her book. It's also very interesting. It is focused on schools. It is actually like a K through college focus or like university focus with all of the examples, but the first book is amazing. This is a follow-up book really focused on how this shows up for school leaders specifically. So again, encourage people to look at this one.
When we're doing your form, it's asking if this is a Link workshop or Link spring cycle.
Link workshop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.